Honored guests, friends, and partners from both US and China, welcome to the 2022 US-China Agriculture Roundtable. My name is Min Fan. I am the Executive Director of US Heartland China Association. We are so honored to organize this roundtable with all the support we've received from both US and China. Today's program, the third in the four-part roundtable this year, is focused on agriculture education, especially around the theme of food system transformation and climate change. As one of the leaders at the opening celebration last week shared, there are no other two countries that can make as big a difference in climate change as US and China together. So the US-China joint Glasgow declaration that was announced at the COP26 pointed out many areas US and China can work together, and agriculture had a big part in that. So today we'll hear from many leaders in the ag education field, and you guys will help shape how much impact, how big a difference we can make, and all the areas we can collaborate and learn from each other. So to help kick off the dialogue today, I'm really honored to invite Ambassador Kenneth Quinn, President Emeritus of World Food Prize, and a very valuable strategic advisor of our organization, to give the opening remarks. Ambassador Quinn, please.
Yes. Oh, thank you, Min, and thank you for the nice applause from my friends in China. But I'm very grateful to Governor Bob Holden, to Min Fan, and the leadership of the U.S. Heartland China Association inviting me to participate in this important exchange between Chinese and American agricultural research scientists, educators, organized with the Chinese Agricultural University, and on the topic of food system transformation and climate change. Now, I'm speaking to you, you may be surprised given the aged Chinese pavilion behind me, from Des Moines, Iowa. And here in Iowa, it's spring, the weather's starting to change and warm up, and there's an optimism every year at this time. Farmers are getting ready to go into the fields to plant. We just had on March 25th, the celebration of the birth of Dr. Borlaug. It was National Agricultural Day. We're also recalling that it was 10 years ago that President Xi Jinping came here for the US-China High-Level Agricultural Symposium. But that optimism is offset by some of the warnings that I'm seeing from around the world. My very good friend, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, the 2017 World Food Prize laureate, president of the African Development Bank, gave a very troubling interview about how the conflict in Ukraine and Russia is having such a dramatic impact, increasing prices of wheat to 2008 levels. And he's worried about that there could be food crisis in Africa and around the globe. And he has a special $1 billion program that he's initiating to try to counter this. And then I looked through the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report, and this one sentence stood out for me. And it said, transformation of global food systems are key to our collective survival. Our collective survival. I don't know that I've heard words like that before, but Dr. Agnes Kalibata, my very good friend, president of AGRA, special envoy of the Secretary General for the 2021 Global Food Systems Summit, she just wrote an article and said, by uniting and maximizing solutions in multiple existential threats, governments can make this year, 2022, the turning point in the survival of our planet. Those are very, very alarming words used by such highly responsible individuals. Now, governments are important. They build the roads, they set food policy, but I would contend that if you look at the history of the last 75 years, that it was the exchanges between agricultural scientists, like those we have on our panel tonight, sharing innovations that led to the increases in food production that resulted in the single greatest period of food production and hunger reduction in all human history. Just think of how in the 1940s, when American agricultural scientists went to Iwate Prefecture in Japan and met Gonjiro Inuzuka, and they found, and he shared with them some of his Norin 10 dwarf wheat. And he sent those seeds back to scientists in America, including Orville Vogel at Washington State University. And Norman Borlaug, having had some relationship with Professor Vogel, asked him for some of those seeds. And Vogel shared them with him. And it was only in having the Norin 10 that Norman Borlaug was able to develop his miracle wheat. And consider that at the same time he was doing that, in 1953, he went to a conference at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. And there he met a young Indian scientist named M.S. Swaminathan. And they went over to Renenbaum's drugstore across from the university and chatted after the symposium on genetics. And that relationship that started there 10 years later led to Swaminathan inviting Borlaug to India as the great Bengal famine was about to sweep across South Asia. And it led to Borlaug bringing his miracle wheat and saving hundreds of millions of people, leading to his Nobel Peace Prize. And consider Yunlong Ping working with Chinese scientists in Hainan along a railroad track where they discovered the plants that led to hybrid rice. I worked for a decade with Yunlong Ping. I've been to the place where he made that discovery. And then he takes those seeds and goes to Erie in the Philippines and meets with M.S. Swaminathan and shares this great Chinese breakthrough with the world. And so it is in seeing those exchanges, and which were paralleled by Norman Borlaug in his relationship with China. And I brought a few slides to share with you Borlaug's relationship, how, as the first slide shows, he came to China in 1974, at the very beginning of China's opening to the world, the very beginning of exchanges there. And then 30 years later, as the next slide depicts, I went with Borlaug and we came back to China for a symposium with the Chinese Academy of Agricultural Sciences, once again sharing innovations, sharing technology, encouraging this type of interaction. And what, of course, we saw what an incredible transformation had occurred in China in those 30 years. And later that same year, as the next slide shows, Yunlong Ping came to Des Moines, came here, and I greeted him at the airport, escorted him to the ceremony at which Dr. Norman Borlaug presented to him the World Food Prize for his incredible breakthrough achievements. 10 years later, in 2014, on the centennial of Norman Borlaug's birth, the symposium topic I chose for the Borlaug Dialogue at the World Food Prize was the greatest challenge in human history. Can we sustainably and nutritiously feed the 9 billion people who will be on our planet by the year 2049? And which is the topic that being addressed tonight, and that Agnes Kalabata and the Intergovernmental Panel is addressing. And in 2019, in my last year as president of the World Food Prize, the last Borlaug Dialogue I organized was on the topic of peace through agriculture. And the last panel I organized, where I chaired it, was I wanted to bring together the 4 of the most insightful and smartest and thoughtful people that I knew and had encountered in my 20 years at the World Food Prize to discuss how are we doing in meeting that greatest challenge. And I had Ambassador John Negroponte, former American ambassador to the UN, ambassador to Mexico, ambassador to the Philippines, director of national intelligence, had Dr. Ismail Sarageldin from Egypt with the World Bank, now the Library of Alexandria. He gave a magnificent presentation on climate change. And Josette Sheeran, who had been the executive director of the World Food Program, fighting hunger around the world. And then sitting next to me, the fourth person who was part of that panel was this incredibly insightful individual who I had met when he was the Director General of IFPRI, the International Food Policy Research Institute. And as I got to know him and found out he had done his undergraduate work at Nanjing University, and then came to the US and got his PhD at the University of Minnesota, exactly where Norman Borlaug got his PhD. And that, of course, was Dr. Shengun Fan. And he was so incredibly thoughtful, insightful. I asked him if he would join the World Food Prize Council of Advisors, and he agreed to do so. But at the end of our discussion, all the factors involved, I recall being so impressed that at the end of it was whether we were going to make and address this challenge or not depended perhaps more on whether China and the United States could collaborate and cooperate or not. And if they don't, then the prospects of meeting that challenge and the prospects of the survival that's being discussed are diminished. So I'm so very pleased that we have this wonderful lineup of speakers, including my dear friend, Dean Dan Robeson from Iowa State University. We have three scientists on my last slide to inspire us: Dr. Borlaug, Professor Yunlong Ping, and Professor George Washington Carver, an amazing story individual who attended Iowa State University and then went to Tuskegee University, one of the historically Black colleges and universities. And I'm so pleased we have Dean from University of Maryland Eastern Shore here tonight representing that system with their inspiration to address these incredible challenges and questions of survival. Dr. Shengun Fan, over to you.
Well, thank you, Ambassador Quinn. It's really my great honor to follow you to chair this wonderful panel. I remember in Iowa, Des Moines, the last year when we met, when I was speaking, I announced that I would come back to China Agricultural University. So one of my objectives of coming back is to promote global collaboration and the collaboration between US and China. So I'm so happy to chair or to moderate these two sessions. We know that under the climate change, there's only one word. Climate change does not divide the country. We all face the same challenge. Meantime, hunger and malnutrition are global challenges. So it's not just Americans' problem or Africans' problem or South Asians' problem or Chinese problem. It's a global problem. It's a global ban. So we all need to work together. So today, our panel will zoom in how US and Chinese agricultural universities can work together to strengthen their collaboration to tackle these challenges: hunger, malnutrition issues, and climate change. As Ambassador said, these two countries must work together. It's not just we should, we must work together to tackle some of the common challenges we all face. I think despite the much challenges or differences between two countries, I think in terms of agriculture and education, we have no difference. We know that we have to work together. I was educated in China, Nanjing Agricultural University. I think Professor Fu Feng is here, and also in Minnesota. So my interest is to really make sure that these two countries work together, in education, in science, technology, and exchange. So without further ado, I will introduce the first speaker of the first group of the presentation is Vice President Hu Taishun, China Agricultural University. So he has worked on many important issues, particularly related to water. We know that water, is equally as important as food, as many other resources. So Professor Du, you have 10 minutes.
动一下屏幕。
屏幕。
你先说几句话得了。
没事，就先录下。在这儿是吧？
后面就有。
好，尊敬的扩音大使。
Distinguished guests, distinguished Dr. Queen, Min Fan, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, good morning, good evening. It's a great pleasure for me to participate in today's roundtable. And today, the topic is food system transformation and climate change. And this is the agenda of mine. First is the peak carbon neutrality goals of China and its impact on food production. Second, it's about China Agricultural University actions, research teams, and fields, especially revolving around the topics of food security and climate change. The third part is about China-US agricultural education cooperation for globally ending poverty and ensuring food security. So first part, the carbon peak and carbon neutrality goals of China. As you may know, President Xi Jinping of China prioritizes the impact of climate change, and also we need to protect biodiversity. We need to achieve the dual carbon goals, which is carbon peak and carbon neutrality. Carbon peak by 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2060. This is China's strategy, and the whole nation is on the path to achieve this. This is very important nowadays, especially ever since last year, because we had the biodiversity UN meeting. So this is a milestone for us. And in terms of the China-US joint efforts on climate change and adaptation and mitigation to climate change, we can see a series of documents here, such as the MOU on China-US Development Cooperation and Communication Mechanism, and also China-US Joint Statement on Climate Change, as well as the US-China Joint Glasgow Declaration on Enhancing Climate Action in the 2020s. So all these are very important documents and are the milestones in our collaboration. And also, I would like to take a moment to introduce the climate change impact on agriculture in China. So altogether, we need to pay attention to the increased agricultural meteorological disasters, such as floods and droughts. And also, we have seen the increased losses because of high temperature and low temperature disasters, and also the water scarcity, as well as the crop production potential declining. So we have long-term impact and also the short and medium-term impact, such as the reduced productivity and increased instability of major food crops, as well as the water deficits and shorter fertility period of crops and agricultural disasters. So in order to deal with all these impacts, we have some national policies. First, we need to create a green, low-carbon agricultural industry chain. We need to promote the circular development of industrial agglomeration. And we also need to encourage research and application of carbon reducing and storage technologies. And we need to explore a mechanism of realizing the value of carbon sink. So that is why we have set up some actions. And also, we have certain teams in these topics and fields. China Agriculture University is a leading agriculture university in China, and we have the agrometeorology. Revolving around this important topic, we have the rural development, breeding, cultivation, horticulture, plant protection, and animal husbandry, etc. And we have Dr. Zhang Fusuo, and Zhang Fusuo is an academician in China. He is the leader of the Green Development and Green China project. So for these topics, he has already published some papers on the top journals such as Nature and also some other international journals. And he's talking about how to produce more and safer as well as more nutritional and healthy food with less land, less water, less labor. And also Professor Kang Shaozhong is another academician. He is the team leader for the adaptation to changing climate. And in his team, actually, it's about the 3 innovations in breeding heat-resistant wheat varieties. He has done so much work, and also he has done some molecular marker works, such as the 117 heat-tolerant wheat germplasms and 12 new genes. He has also innovated the heat-resistant breeding technologies. And also we have Chen Fu. Chen Fu is a professor in our university, and his team is dealing with climate-smart agriculture. On top of that, we also have Xu Xiaoyun, and Li Xiaoyun is another professor in our university, and his topics is mainly about the South-South cooperation and also the international development policy and governance. And he has done also a lot of work. Because the time restriction, I can only give you some general overview. And now I would like to move on to talk about the China Agricultural University initiatives. Actually, back in 5 or 6 years ago, China Agricultural University has initiated this A5+N. And this is an alliance which we call A5. And A5 are actually 5 agricultural universities. And nowadays, we have enlarged this alliance called A5+N. This is an education platform for food security. We also collaborated with FAO, UNESCO, and WFP to address the issues such as global development, cooperation for ending poverty and hunger in a post-pandemic era. And this year, we are also going to hold another session, and we are likely to invite a lot of international friends to participate in this. So for the education cooperation, I think we need to develop A5 into A5+N models based on enhanced cooperation with international organizations and African partners, serving as a bridge between academia and UN SDGs. And second, I think we need to join hands to provide global public goods with priorities on global agriculture, climate change, health, poverty reduction, and inequity. And we also need to encourage scientists of both countries to work on the urgent challenges such as the greenhouse gas emission reduction, climate change adaptation and mitigation, as well as food security and food safety. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Dr. Du. You have given us a very brief introduction to CAU's initiatives and also CAU's cooperation mechanism and cooperation models, especially between China and the United States, such as how to adapt and mitigate climate change and how to increase and promote food security. And now I would like to move on to Professor Daniel Robinson. You have 10 minutes.
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Hi, everybody. Pleasure to be with you today. Thank you, Director Fan, Ambassador Quinn, and Dr. Fan for hosting this activity tonight. I have a few comments to make from here at Iowa State University in the center of the U.S. Iowa is a very significant state in terms of agricultural production. Nationwide, we rank first in the production of corn, second or third in the production of soybeans, first in the production of hogs, first in the production of eggs. And so what happens in Iowa is very, very much about agriculture, and we are concerned about the state of agricultural education, the impacts of climate change, and of course, food supply. Could I have the next slide, please? I offer this slide simply to set the context of my remarks, and I think in part the comments that are made by all the speakers tonight. The graph that you see on the top right on world population growth from the year 1700 to 2100 is familiar to all of us. And it shows that there are more and more people all the time, of course. The graph on the top left shows the changing nature of greenhouse gas concentrations, and the implications are obvious as well with respect to climate change, the mitigation that needs to happen, and the impacts, particularly among people who are less fortunate than others. The impacts of climate change will be all the greater. And then I think there are several conclusions we can draw from both of these graphs. The first one is, in my comments, that the land area per person worldwide and the amount of fresh water per person worldwide today are half per person of what they were in 1960. So in the year I was born, there was twice as much land per person and twice as much water per person as there is today. I think that puts it into really stark contrast as to the constraints on our resources. By the year 2100, which is not that far away, of course, there will be even more challenges. Arguably, there's less arable land today than there used to be. Urbanization takes away landscapes. Rising sea level, also an effect of climate change, takes away landscapes. And then we have landscapes that we have misused and overused. We have water that is no longer as clean as it needs to be. And of course, fresh water is a finite resource that cycles through our environment, but we don't renew it, we don't make more of it. It's important to note that today, about 50% of the world's population lives on less than $5 US a day. Many of us who are in affluent communities, we will waste more than $5 a day before we wake up in the morning. The food that rots in our refrigerators, the food that we don't finish on our plates, the air conditioning or the heating that runs when we don't need it. These are wastes of energy and resources. Most of the world, the point is, does not consume enough. In other words, as we move the population from 7.7 towards 11 billion people, it's unconscionable to imagine a world where still more than 50% of the people live on less than $5 a day. What we want is a world where some of us might consume less or be more efficient, but most people need to consume more food, more nutrition. Most people need to consume more education. Most people need to consume more heat and light and health care. And all of these things, of course, take resources. The answer here is the deployment of science and technology, greater understanding of science and technology in the world around us, and very much so, greater and improved understanding between people around the world, between nations such as the US and China. And I would conclude, I think we would agree, that university education and collaboration are absolutely required in order to be able to pursue these challenges and to be successful in not only addressing climate change and not only addressing arable land and clean water, but in dramatically increasing the consumption of those resources for the very, very many people on the earth today, and that will be here even more so in the future. Next slide, please. It matters what we do. These are a few things that are on our minds here at Iowa State University and across the state of Iowa, and some of the things that we're doing at this university in these regards. So first off, we're very concerned and very interested in issues of global demand and trade with respect to agricultural products. both commodity and raw products, as well as finished products and manufactured goods. Tremendous amount of the crops and the livestock that we grow here in Iowa is exported elsewhere in the United States and around the globe. There is a carbon footprint, an energy footprint for all of those things. We care deeply about that. We care about vibrant markets that work and function on behalf of the consumers who are consuming the food, as well as on the producers, the farmers, and the people who supply goods and services to farmers. All these things are important in that value chain. We know that the value chain and the supply chain can struggle at times, as it is today. But these things are important to us. We want our students to study and understand these things, and we want to have an impact on the people who are involved in the agricultural supply chain, the demand and the trade that goes on, so that they can understand these things better. It's important in the same regard that the environmental challenges that face our agricultural supply chains are known and appreciated by everybody. They need to be appreciated by the common farmer. They need to be appreciated by the multinational corporation, so that everybody can be moving, if you will, pulling in the same direction to mitigate environmental challenges, so that we can optimize agricultural production and do so in a world that's going to have more people and, frankly, fewer resources available to them. This is all about sustainability. Some people don't like to use the word sustainability anymore because they say it doesn't mean that much. You never know what somebody means by it. Everybody thinks of it differently. But I would argue that the word sustainability is exactly the right word because it means so many things to so many people. That in fact, there are many, many ways to define sustainability, and that most of us, perhaps all of us, have a fundamental appreciation that sustainability means we want to be able to provide the resources to the people who need it now and in the future, and in a way that improves lives, doesn't diminish them. And finally, in terms of this US-China relationship and this particular forum that we're speaking at tonight, we here in the US and you in China, we need to work together every day. We meet each other every day, not just here in the US and in China, but all around the world. The intersection and the interaction between the US economy and the Chinese economy, between the US people and the Chinese people, those interactions are happening all around the world every day. And working together, we can do more to improve the state of society, the state of our natural resources, agricultural production, and food supply than if we do not work together. Here at this university, we have several key things that we are doing in this regard, and of course would love to expand them as well. One of our particular points of pride is we have something called the China Agriculture Center that's located within our Center for Agriculture and Rural Development. And you see there the website for it, card.iastate.edu. And if you go to that website, you can click on a whole series of position papers and working papers and publications that are focused specifically on the intersection between Chinese agriculture and American agriculture, and commentary on those. And here you see just a small array of some of the most recent articles that our scientists in that center have developed and put together. They do these quickly and in response in real time to the needs of agricultural groups here in Iowa and elsewhere. And we're really very, very proud of the work they do. We would love for all of you to check those publications that are historical and on the website, and the new ones as they emerge. And if you have websites like this, please let us know so that we can make those a resource to our students and our scientists. Next slide, please. Finally, a few other activities we do here at Iowa State University that are relevant to this topic. We are very engaged in talking and thinking about carbon. We did a statewide science assessment recently to better understand how through soils, through biofuels, through biodiesel, and many other processes, we can be improving the sequestration and the management of carbon. And I have to make a note that we are thrilled that one of our scientists, Dr. Lisa Schulte-Moore, who works in this area, was a 2021 MacArthur Fellow. We're very proud of her and excited about the work she'll continue to do. We have a new nitrogen initiative that is looking at optimal use of nitrogen in crop production, not maximal use of nitrogen. This is important for all kinds of reasons, including water quality, but also we know that in corn production, for example, fully 35% of the energy use in corn production is related to fertilization. And of course, fertilization has other impacts in terms of nitrous oxide emissions and greenhouse gases in those regards. So we're hoping to improve productivity and profitability and very much improve environmental quality by deriving new ways of managing nitrogen. And of course, it's not lost on any of us that the price of nitrogen fertilizers make this all the more important right now. Our Iowa Nutrient Research Center and reduction strategy is about developing cleaner water off of rural landscapes. We work very much in the realm of precision and digital agriculture to reduce the environmental footprint and increase the efficiency of production, which will help us on the environmental side of the house as well. Many people working on alternative crops and products, also interested in the energy footprint, the carbon footprint, and very important, the nutritional footprint of these different products. Our Seed Science Center is renowned and works worldwide. We have a new feed mill and grain science complex, and we're working very much at expanding our energy by agricultural activities and how we teach our students in those regards. Animals' disease threats, of course, are very important to us and impact these systems in every way possible. We are proud of our linkages, including, for example, with the World Food Prize, which is here in Iowa with us, and that's a wonderful advantage. We work very much with America's Cultivation Corridor, and there you see a website for the Cultivation Corridor, which is striving to create an ecosystem of opportunity here in Iowa and across the Midwest in terms of agricultural technologies and corporations. We are trying harder all the time to develop further associations with Chinese universities. And as a university framework, we have moved innovation and entrepreneurship to the forefront of how we think about our teaching and our education work. All of these things, I believe, relate to the topic of tonight's conversation. Thank you very much, Sheshe, and I appreciate the opportunity to be with you.
Dr. Fan, you are muted. Shingan Fan, Dr. Fan, you are muted.
Yeah, okay, can you hear me now? Yeah,
Yes.
I think, thank you, Dean Robinson. He made a very important observation. That is, top 50% of the population consumes too much energy, too much water, too much land, too much food, too much almost everything. In the meantime, the bottom 50% of the population who earns less than $5 per day needs to access more resources, particularly food. So how can we address the challenges, particularly in the area of food and agriculture? Is critical. Now, I have some memory of CARD. CARD has worked so well on international trade. Now, Ag Center, the China Ag Center obviously produced lots of important publications, particularly in the areas of U.S. agricultural trade. I think the agricultural trade between U.S. and China is not only good for U.S. and China, it's good for the whole world, food and nutrition security. So these two countries have great potential to work together through trade to address some of the global issues. Obviously, he also introduced some of the initiatives in Iowa State, natural resource management, climate change, nutrition, animal diseases, and so on. So thank you, Dean Robinson. Our next speaker is Professor Tommy Zhang. She's the Vice President of the CBA Agricultural and the Forestry University. She is also a very good agricultural economist. Professor Tommy, you have 5 minutes.
Good morning, good evening. I want to thank the U.S. Heartland China Association and the other organizers for inviting me to participate in the roundtable. So I want to talk about our university's work and efforts in addressing the challenges. And I will also talk about some of our initiatives and thinking behind these initiatives. First, we believe the first challenge is food system transformation and climate change. This is a very complex issue and in agricultural education, we are facing more and more challenges on addressing both issues at the same time. We believe food system transformation and climate change impact each other, and we expect it to become even more complex in the future because it involves many disciplines, whether it's technology or whether it's biodiversity or nutrition, and every field and every discipline involves both science and the arts. And secondly, it is a multi-tiered issue. So it's both micro and macro, and it can be focused on domestic policies or it can be focused on global challenges and policies. So this is not just about agricultural education. It's about the explosion of knowledge and the differentiation between disciplines and the cooperation between disciplines. So it involves both individuals and groups, and it also involves education and academic research. So this is a very complex issue and a multi-tiered problem. And secondly, food system transformation is driven by many factors. And the interaction between food system transformation and climate change are increasingly complex, whether it's food and the environment or climate change. There are many factors that are affecting these issues. And we're also fighting COVID-19 and the food production and consumption. They're all impacted by technology and nature and society and economy. And this is not just about supply and demand. It can also be impacted by, for example, the Russian-Ukraine conflict. And as President Xi said, that this is a once-a-century transformation, and there are many uncertainties, and many of these factors will impact the food system transformation and climate change. And we'll see even more uncertainties in the future. And the food system transformation and climate change issues are very urgent. However, we need to rely on technological innovation, but that takes a very long time. So it needs a lot of funding and needs a lot of talent. And we need to focus on parts of the solutions, and these will also take a very long time. So this is the second consideration, which is the slow process. And the third aspect is that China and other countries need to address the micro challenges. And these micro needs and macro needs are not the same. About a quarter of the production is provided by smallholders. And when they adopt green technologies, they can't really ensure productivity and yield.
So actually, for smallholder farmers, actually, it's very difficult for them to attract high-level talent because actually for the smallholder farmers, their profitability is relatively low. So the smallholder farmers, they have less ability to have the green production technology. So I think smallholder farmers should be the vulnerable group that we need to help the most, because they need to embark on the path of green production, green agriculture. And talking about agricultural modernization, this is also some challenging issue that we need to consider, because we need to think about the multidiscipline issue to reduce agricultural greenhouse gas emission. And we need to improve the level of agricultural machinery. And we need to have the reduced energy consumption. And in terms of the agricultural modernization, we also need to provide enough and ample supplies of agriculture, such as eggs, meat, and dairy products, as well as vegetables and staple food. This is also some important consideration for us, because we think for the animals such as cattle, these animals can also account for 20% of the agricultural carbon emission. So how to utilize some new technologies and innovative ways to reduce these carbon emission. We also need to think about the food consumption, because actually food consumption is a multifaceted issue for we to talk about, because when we talk about the food consumption, we need to think about food waste and food loss. These are very important problems for us to think about. Actually, for those dietary habits in China, a lot of people don't have a reasonable or healthy dietary habit, because from 2000 to 2016 in China, the adult obesity rate has increased from 2.3 to 6.6%. And for children aged 5 to 7 years old, their obesity rate increased from 3.7 to 17.5%. And these are the figures from WHO. So these are unhealthy statistics. We need to pay attention to this. And talking about food waste, actually China's urban dining food waste is estimated to be 17 to 18 million tons per year. So this is also a shocking number for us. We need to think about all these problems when we talk about food consumption. But of course, these are challenging issues. We need to raise people's awareness about food waste and also food loss, because for a lot of Chinese people, they don't have this awareness. They think, oh, this is just a waste of food. It's no big deal. But actually, for us, we need to raise the general public's awareness. You need to eat all of your food on your plate. So this is something we need to do in China in order to change people's mindset. And we also need to have self-discipline for a lot of people in this respect. And how to avoid food waste is not only an agricultural topic, it's also a philosophical topic, it's a societal topic. So that's why I say we need to have the multidiscipline efforts to achieve this. And for the possible directions of development, we want to talk about our collaboration project with many universities overseas and also in China. And we have scholars from different disciplines to join hands with each other to conduct research projects. And I believe in the future, we're going to have more and more cross-disciplinary research projects, not only between China and foreign universities, but also inside one university. We need to have the cross-disciplinary research projects going on. And in our university, each and every year, we also have 20 to 30 postdoctoral degree holders coming from the United States back to our university. We also have some visiting scholars or visiting professors, sending them to the United States. For instance, in my team, I have some students now in Yale University or some other universities in the United States. So I think this kind of collaboration or this kind of exchange is very important, because climate change or how to adapt to and mitigate climate change is a topic which respects no country borders. That is why all countries need to collaborate, especially countries like China and the United States, because we are big countries. We are big agricultural powers. So we need to join hands with each other to adapt to climate change, because climate change is such a challenging problem. And it needs both of our efforts. And international exchange is the very important topic that we need to pay attention to in terms of agricultural education. And also, we need to talk about how to apply different scientific achievements in our daily work, such as ICT, information and communication technology, and its application in China's agriculture, farming, and rural issues. We also need to think about these two different disciplines. I also talked about Chinese people's dietary habit. And I think for China, we need to have some guidance or some documents to guide the ordinary people to have more healthy dietary plan, dietary habit. And China is also vast. In different parts, different provinces of China, people have different dietary habits. But generally, we need to guide these people to have a more healthy dietary plan. And also, in terms of the agricultural education, I have already mentioned that our university is collaborating with more than 100 overseas universities, not only in the United States, but also in all other countries. But I really think that we need to do even more in this respect. We need to collaborate with more universities and colleges, especially the universities in China and the United States. This is necessary for us to learn the information, exchange information in terms of the national policy and also how to adapt to climate change. That's it for me. Thank you.
He highlighted the complex system we face in our food and agriculture. So we need a multidisciplinary approach because the food system needs to address multiple objectives. It also involves trade-offs, synergies. So research should address some of the synergies and the trade-off issues. And he emphasized the more collaboration between the US and China in the area of food and agriculture. Okay, thank you once again. Now, our next speaker is Moses Hero from University of Maryland. Sure. By the way, I lived in Maryland for 7 years in Montgomery County. Dean Hero, please, 7 minutes, 10 minutes.
Thank you, Professor Fan, and thank you, Dr. Min, Ambassador Quinn, and all the participants for this session today. So global food systems are vulnerable to many shocks, but perhaps nothing brought into sharp focus or this issue into sharp focus as the recent and perhaps ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. It exposed very serious vulnerabilities in the food system, both at the local and global level. And this has had the impact of galvanizing much discussion, and hopefully we'll see even more action. Clearly, it is imperative that services and outputs from food systems are buffered from such unexpected shocks. Indeed, even as we meet today, and Ambassador Quinn referenced this, we have already begun to witness the reverberations of the current conflict in Ukraine on food systems. With this said, I think the topic of our discussion today is very important. It's true to also say that the words transformation and climate are increasingly heard in discussions about global food systems and the very future of this planet. Arguably, there is more of a general understanding of what climate change signifies. After all, the impacts of more extreme weather have been widespread, impacting many aspects of life. The Biden administration has described climate change as an existential threat and an issue with dimensions in national security, foreign policy, environmental justice, agriculture, and other areas. As a consequence, President Biden issued an executive order specifically focused on the issue and to bring sharp focus onto the issue. However, when we speak of food system transformations, I think the issues are more complex. And one of the earlier speakers really went into more detail about some of these complexities. So what does transformation mean in the context of the food system? I think in different circles, we'll find that food system transformation may mean different things. From my vantage point, I can say that the food systems have been continuously changing and evolving as new knowledge was generated. Universities such as ours and those in this meeting today play a critical role in advancing the horizons of knowledge leading to increased productivity of food systems. We have faculty and students exploring traditional and new frontiers of science and exploring ways to harness areas such as gene editing and artificial intelligence to support the food system. At the global level, however, many people are still going to bed hungry. Sadly, based on the 2021 report, the world is not even on track to meet some of the key metrics of the Sustainable Development Goals set for 2030. So the food system faces the challenges of adapting to and mitigating the impacts of climate change. And indeed, agriculture is viewed as a substantial contributor to climate change. Of course, this dynamic can be changed by creating solutions to the complex and interrelated causes of climate change through the development of science-based and data-driven practices and policies that reduce, for example, greenhouse gases and sequester carbon, while building resilience to the effects of climate change in our food systems. And many of the speakers before me have spoken to many of these areas. Food system transformation will therefore need to be very broad-based to address the many interlinked factors, including climate change. So can land-grant universities such as the University of Maryland Eastern Shore work together with partners from across the globe, such as yourselves, to address some of these fundamental issues? I really believe that the answer to that is a resounding yes, and I've already had many examples of what is already going on. We can and we should, especially given our institutional structures with a focus not only on the workforce development piece, but also on the research and discovery and extension and outreach. When we look at the issue of climate change, for instance, a survey that was conducted recently by the Experiment Station section of US land-grant universities to assess the climate research capacities revealed that a number of strength areas across the nation. This survey also identified gaps and opportunities, which included the fact that there were deficiencies in the social science and policy domains of climate research capacity, and there was scope to expand the capacity in areas such as equity and impact on communities of color, social change and impacts, communications, human health, and urban environments. Among the key conclusions of that study were that the impact of climate change is place-based. Hence, the nationwide system of distributed institutions, land-grant institutions, and the high quality of faculty and staff across these institutions were uniquely positioned for the research efforts across the US. Issues like environmental justice and reducing the impact of climate change on underrepresented populations requires a clear focus on equity. There were a number of other conclusions from this survey, but as a group and recognizing some of these challenges and the interlinked nature of the challenges, the 1890 land-grant universities, including the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, are working on a collaborative, broad-based initiative focused on adapting and mitigating the impacts of climate change. The universities are particularly interested in addressing issues with a focus on low-wealth communities, communities of color, and socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. And the idea is that bringing together the collective group of institutions, we can address the issues on a broader scale. So the initiative itself focuses on 4 objectives. The first focus is on equity. We want to better understand the perceptions of affected low-income communities and to be able to know what we can do beyond that. The second focus is on soils. The third focus is on water. And the fourth area of focus is on our policy domains of climate research with a view to evaluate current impacts of current policies and to be able to provide guidance on policies that will make a difference to these particular populations. In addition to this sort of efforts focused within the US, the universities have also come together as a collective and a center called the 1890 Center of Excellence for Global Food Security and Defense. And this center is a global center bringing together the 19 universities with the idea of focusing on issues of global food security and defense. This center is hosted by ourselves here at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. And the center's activities are focused in 4 target regions in West Central Africa, Eastern and Southern Africa, the Caribbean, and Latin America. And we hope to be able to expand activities well beyond those areas. Now, in addition to the idea of supplying a globally educated workforce, the 3 key areas of focus for this center is agricultural development in developing countries, a focus on emerging animal and plant pests and diseases, and engaging in agricultural disaster recovery. And across all these 3 areas, climate change and the idea of harnessing emerging technologies are cross-cutting themes. The center's partners include, of course, the 19 universities, as well as the 1890 Universities Foundation, and many other partners from across the globe. It is our goal to expand activities and partnerships beyond those already established to be able to address these issues in a more comprehensive manner. So in closing, I would like to thank US Heartland China Association for organizing this session. I think it's a great session. It's a session to be able to form linkages with the many institutions represented here from China. Clearly, transformation of the global food system and climate are important issues for the entire world. And as the two largest economies, the footprint of both the US and China on these issues is huge. Effective solutions will have both global and local dimensions. So from our perspective, developing collaborative initiatives in agriculture, in this agricultural space will without doubt create synergies and wins. And we are keen to explore the opportunities for collaboration with our colleagues in China and to address these important issues on a global scale. Thank you for the opportunity.
Issues Carol mentioned, I think other speakers also mentioned, but one particular issue he emphasized equity from the food system transformation, including those issues even in US and in emerging economies in developing countries. I think this collaboration between University of Maryland Institute and other universities has no limit. So we'll have 5 minutes for Q&A. I have been a poor moderator. So looks like we don't have any questions from Q&A. But using the privilege of the moderator, I wanted to ask the same question to each panelist. That is, what would be the biggest challenge for you to strengthen the collaboration between China and the US? One challenge, and how we're going to tackle that. And you finish that in 1 minute, if it's possible. So let's start with the same order. Okay, firstly, Vice President Tu from China Agricultural University. So what will be the biggest challenge for us, for CAU, to strengthen the collaboration? Whether it's funding, whether it's institutional collaboration, or political context.
Thank you, Dr. Fan. Currently, the biggest challenge for international cooperation is COVID-19 and the restrictions imposed by COVID-19. It has disrupted our face-to-face communications. We hope that by the end of the year, we will return to some kind of normalcy. In addition to COVID-19, we believe it's important to build a big platform. We have an A5 platform, but I think we can work with the USHCA to build a good platform focusing on food system transformation and climate change. And it should be a multilateral organization, and every year we can propose topics for research and discussion. And also, China and the United States need to work together to address the hunger issue and the poverty issue in Africa. I think if we can solve the African problem, for example, by setting up some demonstration projects that can help them increase food production, and we can share our technologies regarding different crops to help them increase yield and food production. I believe this is a good way for us to explore opportunities in third markets, especially in Africa. Thank you. Dr. Fan, you're on mute.
Okay, yeah. I think the Professor Du mentioned two issues. One is we can further scale up our collaboration by setting up a collaboration platform. The second is, can we do more in Africa? US and China University can work together to help Africa to increase its food and nutrition security and adapt to climate change. Okay, let's move to Dean Robinson, Iowa State University.
Thank you very much. So first off, I would agree with everything that Vice President Du just offered us. I guess I would rephrase the question rather than the challenge. I would talk about an opportunity. I think one of the strengths of our universities worldwide, and certainly between the US and China, is the opportunity to bring our students together so they can get to know each other. After all, our students are the future of science and technology. And if we could enhance the number of student exchanges and collaborative exchanges so that it's not just a group of American students traveling in China or a group of Chinese students traveling in the US, but groups of those students traveling together. So they build friendships, they build relationships, and they learn together at the same time. I think if we could dramatically increase the number of student cooperative exchanges like that, the world will be a better place and we'll solve some of these challenges much more quickly as well. That would be my suggestion.
Thank you. More exchange of students, not just the side. I think it's all together. Put Africa together, put salvation together. I like that idea. Okay, let's move to the next one. Vice President Zhao from Northwest China Agricultural University.
Thank you, Dr. Fan. Here's how I think about this. For China and US to work together, the biggest problem we have for food system transformation or climate change, how can we propose some workable and pragmatic issues that we should focus on? And these are of our common interest, and this will facilitate the exchanges and cooperation between the faculty and the students. So I believe we should find these topics. And number two is, how do we get the funding? I know that there is one US-China government program, but we know that governments have their own priorities and biases. So how can we first define the topic and then get the funding? So that's my suggestion. Thank you.
We expand funding from both US and China as a government private sector to strengthen the cooperation. Okay, so the last on the list, Dean Carroll.
Thank you, Dr. Fan. I think a number of very good points have been mentioned. I think the question of resources, and especially resources directed towards common issues. For example, we are really focusing on this issue of the global food security in Africa, for example. And I think if we can develop a mechanism by which we can work together to mobilize resources to be able to conduct activities in Africa, for example, it will be a win. So I think setting some kind of framework for us to work together would be great. Thank you.
So let's work together on African food and nutrition security, which I have worked for the last 30 years. So I think we have common interest in working Africa to improve food and nutrition security. Okay, thank you. I want to thank you, the first group of panelists. You have done a great job. I'm not going to summarize it. Let's move to the second group right away, and towards the end, we can summarize what we have learned today. Okay, the next group. We have four speakers again. First speaker will be Thomas Kuhn of Oklahoma State University. So similar issue, similar topics, and you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Fan. And I've enjoyed the conversation already, learning from colleagues around the world, including some here in the U.S., good colleagues at Iowa State and University of Maryland Eastern Shore. I wanted to share some slides here that basically share sort of what I've learned from my own experience. So if you'll bear with me here, I want to tell a story. I want to tell a story about something that happened to me early in my career that I think informs the way I think about the challenges that we've been asked to address here. My background is in fisheries management, and particularly I do a lot of I've done a lot of work in the past looking at streams, fish habitats, freshwater fish habitats, and how those habitats affect the quality of the fishery, the status of fish populations, and so on. Early in my career, I was at the University of Missouri at the time. I had a colleague come to me from a management agency who said, we are going to improve streams in our state for fish. Will you help us? And I said, certainly, what would you like? And he said, well, we need you to do workshops. We'd like you to do workshops for our staff so they know what practices to do that can improve streams for fish habitat. So for example, the illustrations that I have here show on the left side, a stream where we've had severe stream bank erosion, and that causes silt in the substrate. It degrades the quality of the habitat for fish in a number of ways. And my response to him was, well, we're not ready for workshops. I still need to understand a lot more about the dynamics of streams and how different practices can help to improve habitat and those kinds of things. And he paused for a minute, and then he said, well, that's fine, but we're going to do something. And so if you're going to be involved with this, your answer isn't satisfactory. We need something now. My response had been, I need more information. I need more time. His response was, we don't have it. Get on board and help us figure this out. And so I like to use that as an illustration of how I think about managing in a time of uncertainty. And in talking about climate change and food security and the challenges that we're facing currently that our other speakers have addressed so well already, I really see us being in this place. We have a lot of uncertainty. We have a lot of uncertainty about the environment. We have a lot of uncertainty about what the future meteorological conditions will be in any particular location. We have a lot of uncertainty about what consumer preferences are going to be. We have uncertainty about the nature of markets and how those will be responding to various factors. And so in a way, what we're looking at is a world of perhaps increasing uncertainty, but we've been working in a world of uncertainty. And of course, the last 3 years remind us of that. It's great humility for us to realize that how unprepared we were for a global pandemic, one that's been devastating. And yet, imagine if it had been worse. Imagine if the R naught of COVID-19 had been much greater than it was. So anyway, I guess the bottom line is we often, academics, we think about things as being slow and that we have time to study and understand things better, but we don't. And so I think it's helpful for us to think about, what does agricultural education look like if we embrace this notion that we're living in a time of uncertainty. And not only we as scientists and as academics are uncertain of what's going to happen, but our students, as they graduate, they're going into that uncertainty. And it seems to me that the role of our role in education should be to prepare our students to deal with that uncertainty in productive ways. And so, for example, going back to the stream habitat example, the proper response that I should have given at the time, that I learned over time was the right response, was I should have said, there's a lot we don't understand about this, but let's do this. Let's look at 3 different approaches to improving stream habitat. And let's collect data as we go along. And so perhaps one of those practices will be good. Perhaps two of them will be good. But even if they're not good, we'll learn from the process and we're doing something at the same time. The beauty of that is, of course, it is a scientific approach because you're exploring, you're testing your ideas, and then you're gathering data to evaluate those. But also, you're bringing the public to be involved with it as well. The people, the stakeholders, those who care about streams are coming along with you as well and learning from that process. So I think there's value in thinking about what we do in our role as educators in helping to prepare our students and ourselves to work in that uncertain environment. So I would say I've identified 5 key features that I think are important in our education programs to help prepare our students for this world of uncertainty. The first is, how do we acquire knowledge rapidly and while we're facing a challenge? So kind of like going back to my example of streams, we had I had an immediate challenge. I needed to understand a lot more. I didn't have enough time to learn it. What could I do then? This was 35 years ago. So we didn't have the internet. You know, I could go back, I could go over to the library, I could call other scientists and so on. But today it's really quite different. And I think, you know, perhaps knowledge is more socially a social ownership than it ever has been before, because knowledge is so accessible online and through our social networks that perhaps we can we or maybe our students can help us understand how can we acquire knowledge rapidly in the process of dealing with a challenge. So our traditional approach is, well, you need to understand physics, and you need to understand chemistry, and then you need to understand soil chemistry and physics, and you need to understand plant physiology and animal reproduction, all those kinds of things. Yeah, we probably need to continue to do those kinds of things in our academic programs. But I think what's more important is that rather than telling students what we know, we need to help them find ways to find out what we know. So that they whether it's going to an expert or going to an information source. So as they deal with challenges of the nature of COVID-19 or a persistent drought, like we seem to be experiencing in the southwestern part of the country, you know, we need to be gathering information as we go. So I think thinking about our education program, we need to be focusing on it in that way, not telling them, but helping them discover what we know about the world around us, the way it works, and how these changes that are going on might affect basic elements of food production, distribution, and environmental management, and so on. I think along with that, we really need to focus on analytical skills in our students, helping them understand how to frame and evaluate alternatives. So we have a challenge. We understand there may be 2 or 3 different things explaining what's going on, but what can we do about that? What changes can we implement in our management practices, in our markets, in our livestock production systems? Quickly going to what are some alternative scenarios, and then framing those and understanding, you know, developing a plan for how do we evaluate those scenarios, because we'll learn a lot more by implementing 2, 3, or 4 different solutions in different settings than just saying, well, here's the answer, y'all need to do this. Instead, we need to set up and learn what we call adaptive management or adaptive research, learn as we go by applying you know, science-based ideas for implementation, but gather data as we go. So we learn from those in a systematic way and then share that out more widely. I think, you know, one of the things that we often overlook in that is we think, well, analytical skills, that means they need to have really good quantitative skills, and they do. But there's a lot more to how the human brain analyzes things than just quantitatively. And so we come with different perspectives. We come with different biases. And rather than be afraid of those, I think we need to embrace those differences and bring different perspectives to the table. So, for example, we talk in the U.S. in particular, we talk a lot about people from different backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, race, ethnic backgrounds, international backgrounds, all very important, bringing different perspectives. Indigenous backgrounds in different indigenous cultures have intelligence, have insights, and have knowledge that we can gain from, and so on. But ultimately, we need to put our students in a situation where they are encountering those different perspectives, those different backgrounds, and learn to work with them. And so we've had several speakers have talked about this, exchange programs and so on. We're very fortunate at Oklahoma State to have a very close partnership with the International College Beijing at the China Agricultural University, where we have a joint degree program in agribusiness management. And so we have students who come from China. They're very conversant in English because their first 2 years in Beijing, all education has been in English. When they come here, these are really sharp students. And so they are studying with our American students and our other international students and learning about the challenges that we face in agriculture, particularly related to agribusiness, and then coming up with solutions. They all have to develop and evaluate each other and how do you pitch, make a sales pitch, for example, for a client. So, those kinds of encounters, I think, are really helpful for our students as they graduate to be positioned to learn how to bring other voices to the table and respect and understand and incorporate their ideas into our analytical thinking. That, of course, means communication is really important. And so helping our students learn and practice communicating with each other, with people from different backgrounds, in different subject areas, for different audiences. Communicating with your peers is different than communicating with the public. Communicating with scientists is different than communicating with policymakers. And so, again, that's something that we can incorporate even more and more in our programs to help our students be prepared for the kind of communications they will need when they're tackling these changes that we're still trying to get our arms around and understand. Working with people from different backgrounds also means working with people who have different objectives. And so working with producers, I think, is an especially important one. Our students learn pretty well how to work with each other and how to work with professors. We need them to work with farmers, with ranchers, with food processors, and even with consumers. And so, a great example of that, I think, is bringing the producers to the table when we are developing and implementing our research programs. And there's a great example of this. It comes from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. It's called TAPS, Testing Ag Performance Solutions, but it's taking advantage of irrigation systems that have variable treatments of water and nutrients provided and so forth. Basically, they open their testing mechanism up to producers. Producers can say, I want you to use this regimen for irrigation and this nutrient and these seeds and so on. And then their data is available for everyone else to see. So there's an opportunity for us to be influenced in our research by the producers, for the producers to actually start to understand how the research process works, and then to be able to analyze each other's data as well. So that's a great example of communicating effectively by bringing the people who need the information to the table and help to organize that. I'll just talk briefly about my other 2 points: organizational management and change. This is something that is a part of our lives, and we need to embrace it. We need to help our students understand that different approaches, different committee structures, different decision processes are all need to be in their repertoire as they encounter new challenges, whether it's with respect to food safety, food security, climate change, or what have you. But to understand how organizations work, it's not enough to know how an individual farmer is likely to respond, but how would a farmer organization respond? And how can you use that? How can you work with that organization to accomplish what you think is important to accomplish? That's something that's not really built into our curricula. But if we're looking at what agricultural education needs to be doing for this era of rapid change and uncertainty, I think that's a really important one. And then finally, leadership is one that's kind of an obvious one. But we really need to help our students practice leadership and practice leading in different ways. Sometimes leading means following, helping them understand how they can be a more effective team member, even if they're not the leader, because the better they are as a team member, the better prepared they are to be a team leader. And so helping them understand the role of facilitation, helping them understand how to articulate a vision and how to gather people around that vision. And then, simply, very simply, how to work with a group to assign tasks, be accountable, report back, and celebrate the accomplishments. So I'll stop there. It's I wanted to take a little different approach and share some ideas about how I think these challenges that we're facing really should be affecting the way that we teach and work with our students.
Thank you,
Thank
Dean Kuhn. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay, great. Yes. Well, I'm very much aware of your cooperation with our International College of Agribusiness Education. Dean Li Daoliang says hello to you, by the way.
Great.
Yes, I think some of the futures you mentioned, how can we really improve our education quality, particularly under the uncertainty, is very critical. So thank you for doing that. Okay, let's move to the speaker, Vice President Qing Ping from Huazhong Agricultural University. 10 minutes, please.
Thank you all the participants of this food system transformation and climate change roundtable. Thank you for Shenggen give us this chance to report here. We know that climate change presents a grave threat for both US and China, and globally as well. Agriculture has a unique two-way relationship with climate change, not only because climate change will severely and adversely affect agriculture, but also agriculture itself is a sustainable contributor to climate change. As the world's top two greenhouse gas emitting countries, the US and China could promote more collaboration in agriculture to achieve following two important goals. So I think we have two important goals that we should pursue. The first one is to improve global food security, not only in China, but also in the world. Food production systems are particularly vulnerable to adverse impact of climate change, and is one of the key factors affecting global food security. Yield growth, as you know, has been slowing down overall and cannot be relied upon as the only solution to global hunger. And besides this, furthermore, natural disaster, plant and animal disease outbreaks, and human conflict may create short-term food insecurity. The US and China are in the position to lead the effort in combating global hunger by increasing agricultural productivity and by promoting economic development around the world. So this is the first goal. The second one is that we should meet China and the world's demand for food and nutrition and safety. Climate change poses significant changes to food safety, long-term changes in temperature, humidity, rainfall patterns, and the frequency of extreme weather events are already affecting farming practice and the nutrition quality of food crops. With rapidly growing income and urbanization, China's people today demand more nutrition and food safety. Since China makes land and natural resources to produce more animal products, it needs to seek a health trade relationship with the United States and the world to maintain its access to high quality products and feed. Also, the industrial organization of China's agriculture sector is still diffused, which makes it difficult to improve food safety. To upgrade its food industry, China should strengthen its collaboration with US agriculture companies and industries to access technology and management. By collaborating with China in this respect, the US can expand potential markets for its agriculture products in China. So you can say this is a mutual benefits strategy. Addressing this about serious challenges, along with another pressing agricultural issues under climate change, depends on education and the technology cooperation and exchange between these two countries. And now, I would like to suggest several technology and education cooperation opportunities from 4 agriculture aspects as follows. Of course, this consideration mainly came from our competitive advantage of Huazhong Agriculture University. The first one, or the first field, is the field of horticultural products. This is a very strong discipline in Huazhong Agriculture University. We could implement joint research on the exchange of corporate varieties and genetical resources and on plant protection. Then it deserves to promote technology and education collaboration on post-harvest storage technology and transportation technology and management. We could also plant technology exchange and cooperation on processing agriculture industry as well. Because once you collect agricultural products, you need to process it. And this kind of technology and management are strongly needed in China today. For the cooperation in meat, poultry, and livestock, we should strengthen the cooperation in conservation of genetic resources for livestock, poultry, and forage grass, and strengthen cooperation in selection and the utilization of new breeds and varieties. In terms of scientific research, we would promote it, testing technology. What kind of testing technology we can use for safety and quality of animal feed? In this sector, I would also want to say that agribusiness management and transportation management is also very important in this sector. The third field we can cooperation is aquaculture. Exchange of genetic resources for aquatic products is sustainable for 2 countries' aquatic industries. Now, actually, if you talk about the water, the fish, some products like this, our university, is located in the Hubei province, and Hubei province is the leader of the production of fish in China. Also, a collaborative research and technology exchange should be scheduled in aquaculture to improve efficiency and minimize adverse possible environment impacts. The fourth one that we can do cooperation is biotechnology. And this actually, or relatively, is a new area in China, but it's a very important one, and it's growing very fast. China and the United States could undertake a joint project on drought-resistant, cold-resistant crops. Cooperative research and application could take place in transgenic plant technology, research on target genes of major crops, genetic engineering, genetic breeding, and the development and the utilization of transgenic crops. Also, we could use biotechnology to improve feed quality, feed conservation rates, and development of new feed resources. Actually, one of the most serious challenge we now in China today is that we should improve micronutrients elements in our food so that we can improve the nutrition level and the quality of our food. And in the past 4 or 5 years, I did a research project on the economic evaluation of the biotechnology industry and the technology in China under the support of Feisengen and IFPRI. And the results of this research shows that if we can promote nutrient elements, you can improve it, we will improve the nutrition condition of Chinese people widely. The last one, agriculture has always been an area in which there is a strong mutual dependence between the US and China. It will be important that China and the US come together, work together to ensure these challenges and to meet these challenges, to benefit not only these 2 countries, but global people. Also, I wanted to take this chance to say that quantum agriculture today focuses on smart agriculture, and actually a new faculty. The faculty is a faculty of smart agriculture. This faculty will be established in Quantum Agriculture University in this September. And our strategy is that we should joint agriculture technology with information technology, AI, artificial intelligence, and engineering. And we think that this will be a future strategy to feed the world and to feed China. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, President Jinping. He highlighted the importance of working together for China and the US to promote global food security, working in China, US, and also Africa. The other is nutrition and food safety. I just cannot agree more. We need to do more work, more research, more education on nutrition and food safety. Now, some of the areas he mentioned we can work together is horticulture, livestock, poultry, aquaculture, biotechnology, and beyond. The smart agriculture obviously is very interesting by bringing our traditional agriculture with information technology. So thank you, President Jinping. All right, next speaker is President Hu Feng from Nanjing Agricultural University, where I spent 7 years, my best time in my life on that campus. The President Hu Peng, you have 10 minutes.
尊敬的樊胜根教授，尊敬的各位校院长，各位
Dear
专家，
Professor Thomas Kuhn,
女士们、先生们，
Professor
大
Jin
家
Hua
早上好，
Zhao,
晚上好。
and Mr. Jinping and Professor Fan Shengeng. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, good morning. First, a brief introduction of myself.
教育发展基金会的分管领导，个人的专业领域主要是土壤。
And I myself am responsible for the soil recovery and restoration this is my research area. So first of all, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me here. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to join all of you online. And for this webinar, we are going to talk about the important topic in agriculture, especially agricultural education. This is very important for us. I have also noticed that from both China and also the United States, we have great speakers online, and a lot of you present online, your universities and colleges have already maintained good collaboration projects with our Nanjing Agricultural University. So that is why it's a great pleasure for me. I would like to expand our cooperation. I would like to exchange information in the post-COVID era with all of you, because I think for China and the United States, we have great opportunities in agricultural education. And also, I would like to give you some introduction to our university. Nanjing Agricultural University has a long history with its predecessors dating back to 1902, when it was the Department of Agronomy of Sanjiang Normal College, and 1914, when it was the Bachelor Department of Agronomy of Jinling University, and is one of the pioneers of modern higher agricultural education in China. For a long time, our university has been improving the level of international exchange and cooperation, and is becoming more and more active and has established cooperation relationships with more than 160 high-level universities across the world. In recent years, the university has been ranked the 7th best agricultural science university in the world by US News and World Report. And many disciplines in our university have been ranked among the top in the world. The development of our university has benefited from the long-term pragmatic cooperation with other countries and universities. And moreover, we have set a new goal of building a world-class university with agricultural characteristics. At present, we have already entered the post-COVID era across the world. And the Nanjing Agricultural University is also exploring and making efforts to participate in global food and agriculture governance. Our university has established the Sino-US Joint Research Center for Food Safety and Quality. We also have established the One Health Center, China-UK, China-France, China-Germany Plant Phenomics Center. We have also been actively contributing to the agricultural development of developing countries in Asia and Africa through joint training programs and South-South cooperation programs. And for all these efforts, we want to train the future talents in agriculture. We have paid great attention to our collaborating project with Asia and Africa, because for all these developing countries, the agricultural talents are so much more important for these countries in order to contribute to the global food security and agricultural development, as well as poverty reduction. In 2020, our university was ranked #1 in the world in the Zero Hunger category by the Times. Last year, our university also joined hands with FAO of the United Nations to hold the One Health Global Expert Forum to implement the concept of One Health of all human beings, and to build consensus and cooperation networks to address the complex global issues in health and food security. The year 2022 will be an extraordinary year because we are already in a post-COVID era. And also we have seen the Ukraine and Russia conflict. So all these have given us great challenges to the stability and the development of food systems. That is why we need to drive the One Health concept or the One Health goal of human beings for the whole world. And I also believe today's event is quite timely because we can exchange information, we can exchange experiences in China and the United States. We can promote bilateral and multilateral cooperation and promote cooperation between our own universities in this field. The theme of today's webinar is food system transformation and climate change, which is very timely and up to date. History has taught us that climate and food are closely related with each other. Climate change has great impact on food system, and the food system fluctuations also resonate with the adaptation and mitigation to climate change. So we really need to exchange our efforts to protect agricultural productivity, and we need to protect the soil quality and water quality. In particularly, we can see that the state of food security and nutrition in 2020 showed us that nearly 690 million people worldwide are in food shortage, accounting for 8.9% of the world's total population. According to the United Nations Environment Program, UNEP, some parts of the world are using land unsustainably, and by 2050, 849 million hectares of land will be degraded globally. In addition, under the influence of agricultural intensification, we can see the land use and also the reduced productivity. But we also have noticed that a lot of you online for today's conference are contributing your efforts and wisdom to promote the agricultural development. So I would like to share with you some of my observations with you in this regard. In the post-pandemic era, we need to have even more collaboration with each other and open a new chapter of agricultural development in the whole world. And I think today's event could be a very good new starting point for us to build collaboration framework, establish a common mechanism for sharing information, seek cooperation directions, and promote the development of higher education in agriculture. And just now, President Du also mentioned that we need to even expand and deepen both bilateral and multilateral cooperation. In the post-pandemic era, we also need to join hands more closely to tackle global agricultural science and technology challenges. We have been facing the challenges such as climate change and food security, and all these need our cross-disciplinary efforts. And we need to collaborate with each other, not only between China and the United States, but also among all the countries. and more universities so that we can contribute even more to the development in the whole world. And also, I think in terms of the agricultural education, China and the United States have our own advantages, and we need to guide the innovation in the agricultural education in the whole world, and to help human beings in across the world to live better in a more healthy environment. In a post-pandemic era, we also need to embrace each other more closely. We need to enhance mutual trust and mutual assistance in terms of agricultural education, science cooperation, and sharing of information. We need to open up the in-depth cooperation in agriculture so that we can form a global community of destiny in agricultural education and technology and contribute to agricultural science and technology innovation and global food security and poverty reduction. Even if we are faced with a series of difficulties and challenges, I think as long as we work together, we will be able to achieve our common goals and win-win development. And we would like to take this precious opportunity to thank the organizer, and also we would like to thank all the leaders, experts, and friends online from all walks of life for your support to Nanjing Agricultural University. And also, we would like to invite all of you to attend the 10th World Agricultural Awards ceremony in autumn this year. And this award was dated back to 2002, initiated by our university. So it is already in its 10th year, starting from 2012. So that's why we would like to invite you to attend this awards ceremony this year. And I believe this kind of award can contribute to the sustainable agricultural development. Last but not least, I wish this event a great success. Stay healthy, stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, President Feng. Well, the Nanjing Agricultural University obviously is a well-known agriculture university, not only in China, but also globally. So I'm very proud to be a graduate of that university. President Hu Feng highlighted the post-COVID-19 opportunities as well as the way we can work together much closer. So COVID has brought us together much more than before. And we need new, let's say, new priorities, new framework, and new mechanisms to work together. So some of the issues he highlighted, particularly bring agriculture to human health. How can we link human, let's say agricultural food system to human health, one health, planetary health, human health, even animal health together. I think that's a very important element of the food system transformation. He mentioned several systems, ecosystem, social system, economic system, all this needs to be tackled together. I'm particularly proud that the Nanjing Agricultural University was ranked as #1 in tackling the zero hunger. So in 2014, I received the award from the World Food Program on zero hunger. So I'm particularly proud of that university's achievement. Okay, our next speaker is Jin Hua. I think he used to be from Iowa State, right? So now he moved to Cornell University, if I remember correctly.
Yes, we will have, he unfortunately has a conflict, so he sent a pre-recorded remarks.
Hello, my name is Jin Hua. I'm the Dean of the Dyson School of Applied Economics and Management at Cornell University. And I'm very happy to have this opportunity to share with you my thoughts about the US-China collaboration in research and development. There's so much to be gained if US and China work together. There's two topics that we are talking about today on agriculture and climate change are just the examples where the collaboration between the two major economies of the world is going to be so important. Currently, food security now, especially given the war in Ukraine, food security has assumed even more prominence. Now we are seeing not only disruptions in supply chain, but more importantly, one of the major agricultural production regions is facing a major disruption, and increasing food production in all parts of the world is really becoming more important. And of course, climate change is another area where the top two greenhouse gas emitting countries, the US, the China and the US, the collaboration between the two countries is going to be so important for mitigation, but also for adaptation. So I think I'll spend most of my talk on talking about the collaboration between Cornell University and China, and also share with you some of my own experiences in collaborating with China. So Cornell has a long and distinguished tradition of academic engagement with China, lasting for well over a century. So over 150 years ago, Cornell offered its first Mandarin course. This is back in 1870. And in agriculture, we know that one of our most prominent graduates out of Cornell University, John Lawson Buck, in 1914 graduate of Cornell in agriculture, helped establish the Department of Agricultural Economics at then Nanjing University. So he actually came back in 1933 to finish his PhD in agricultural economics. And for his PhD dissertation, he did a survey of 2,866 farms in 7 provinces in China. This is back in almost 90 years ago, a large-scale survey of almost 3,000 farms. And that data recently have been reanalyzed using modern statistical methods by a faculty member here at Cornell in Dyson, Professor Cal Turvey, together with Funing Zhong, the former dean of the College of Economics and Management at Nanjing Agricultural University. So they published a book in 2019 using the same data that Professor Buck collected. As an example, I also have my own research collaboration with many scholars in China. One of the examples is a joint U.S. National Science Foundation and the Chinese National Science Foundation grant. And this is in food, energy, water. And our project involves Cornell, Michigan State University, my former institution, Penn State University, and Renmin University in China. And we are looking at conservation tillage, conservation practices, including conservation tillage, and which are at different levels of development in the two countries. Again, here you see the complementarity. You see really the importance of being able to collaborate freely and having access to important data. And so in the US, conservation tillage has been going on for several decades. And in many parts of the country, the adoption rate has been very high, over 50%. In some areas, like 60% of the farmland is farmed under conservation tillage. Versus in China, this is really at the beginning. So the two teams are sharing knowledge, are sharing the kind of data that we have analyzed and share our findings, and also some of the modeling techniques process-based modeling. So we are sharing that with our Chinese counterparts. And also our Chinese counterparts are really trying to understand at the early stages of conservation tillage adoption, what are the major factors and what are the not only the kind of social economic features, but also the kind of technical effects and technical reasons and technical factors affecting conservation tillage adoption. So I guess, this is, Cornell University's involvement with China and collaboration with China is only one of the many examples. And I'm sure that other panelists at this conference will share many other really exciting examples. I think, this is, I have this strong belief that collaboration is not between the two countries will not end, especially in R&D. And despite the current narrative decoupling, because doing so is in the interests of the two countries. Collaboration is going to make lives better in both countries. And what happens now is we have to be more cognizant of the specific approaches to collaboration, especially when individual scientists are involved in those projects. So this involves really the kind of changing regulatory environments in both China and the US. So it's in both countries to kind of, for example, in the US, the changing requirements in reporting and disclosure rules, and in China, the different requirements on data access, data availability, and in both countries, the kind of the environments related to intellectual property and intellectual property rights and things like that. So I think it's collaboration is still going to continue, but it's just that we want to be careful. We want to pay more attention to the regulatory environment. And that is going to benefit researchers. So when I say paying attention to regulatory environment, it's not only among individual researchers, it's also in university, at the level of the university administration. We want to make sure that we can help our researchers when they engage in collaboration. We want to be able to help them to make sure that they are properly reporting and disclosing this kind of a collaboration. But other than that, I think this is the fundamental benefits from collaboration is going to be driving this trend. And the other thing that I've noticed is that, especially after the pandemic, we are more and more tech savvy. The researchers are more and more tech savvy, and we are utilizing the technological developments out of the necessity during the pandemic, but also that is, that development is providing more opportunities for collaboration, even when traveling or going to another country is difficult. So the virtual collaboration, online courses, and that is going to be becoming more and more important. And I think that is going to be helpful in collaboration, in research collaboration, and especially when there are issues, immigration or visa issues for visiting scholars and for students to cross the border, to go from one country to the other. So there's the virtual collaboration option is going to be very helpful. But I think the key here is not to lose hope, and it's really keep pushing for the kind of institutional as well as individual level collaboration in research and development. So I think I'll just end it here. Again, apologies for not being able to join you live, but I hope that we will have more opportunities to exchange ideas in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, Professor Zhou highlighted the historical collaboration between Cornell University and Nanjing Agricultural University. It goes back way, 100 years ago. And also his personal experience, how he has worked with
Chinese colleagues when he was at Michigan State, at Penn State, and now Cornell University. He also mentioned several real challenges right now, particularly reporting requirement, disclosure policy, access to data, and so on. So how can we tackle these challenges to promote our collaboration much further? We can all contribute. Now, seems to me we're almost at the end of our time, but I still wanted to give, let's say, the three speakers from this panel to give their thought, just one point, the reflection, after 2 hours debate. What's that's one point you wanted to really emphasize, whether it's a challenge, whether it's an opportunity. Okay, let's start with Dean Thomas Kuhn. Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Fan. I think perhaps one of the most consistent messages that I've taken from this tonight is just the need for us to do this, to continue to be in communication, to continue to build collaborations across our institutions, across our disciplines, across our nations, and understand that this is a global challenge that we're all facing, and that we have many different perspectives to bring to it, and yet we have the power of a scientific approach to understanding and evaluating ourselves that promises a brighter future for us. If only we learn how to work together and to use those tools that we have. So thank you for the opportunity to hear from so many really impressive speakers.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. You're really looking forward to visit our university once the COVID is gone. Okay, now next is President Jinping.
Thank you. I think the challenge today is that we should learn how to do cooperation online, build up our trust, and do education and joint research online. This is a challenge. The opportunity here is that I think that the opportunity relies on the young generation scientists and our students, because now they have a world global perspective, and they have the capability, even the language skills and the research capabilities to do international cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jinping. All right, now President Hu Feng from Nanjing Agricultural University.
Thank you. Let me echo Mr. Jinping's view. Indeed, when we solve these problems, we have to rely on the next generation of scientists, and that's our students. So for China and the United States to work both bilaterally and working with other countries multilaterally to address the issues we have and to train the talents for the future, especially talents who can solve Africa's problems and to increase food production.
Anything else before I wrap it up?
Just final remarks from any of the speakers and from you as a wonderful moderator.
Well, I don't think we have time for others. Maybe I just try to have some of my own reflection, not necessarily summary. So I have a couple of points. So number one is the challenges we are facing today are grave, are complex. Food security or food insecurity, malnutrition, climate change, conflicts, and migration. So all these issues we are facing are common to all human beings. So US and China are part of these challenges. Can we offer them solutions together to promote win-win-win? Win for China, win for US, win for the whole world. I think food and agriculture can do that. So we must work together. Everybody says so. I fully agree. My number 2 point is, well, we are facing a complex system. So we needed to have multidisciplinary approach. Fortunately, all our universities, land-grant universities, all the agriculture universities in China have all these different subjects, disciplines: soil, water, land, economics, nutrition, processing, animal diseases, and so on. So I think the university will be able to bring all this together. But that's not it. We must also work together with other universities to use our competitive advantages. I think Qingping used that word. So we all have our own advantages. How can we really use our advantages and to take into consideration of your advantages? I think we can do much more than just 1 + 1 = 2. 1 + 1 could equal 3 or 4. So my number 3 point is, in addition to China and the US and China can work in other regions, that's Africa, South Asia, to promote the development in these regions. When these regions begin to develop, we all benefit. US will benefit from trade. China will also benefit from more diversified food imports. So global food security is Chinese food security, is US food security, and Chinese food security is global food security. And the US food security is global food security. So I think you just cannot separate. It's all interlinked. So my number 4 point is, yes, we need to work together more. There are several very concrete proposals. One is, can we set up a collaboration platform, network, to share the data, share the information, share the best practice, share the know-how. I think many have already mentioned that. Some of the areas we can work together, one is the food system transformation, low carbon agriculture, nutrition-driven agriculture, food safety, bring agriculture to health. How can agriculture contribute to health? And biotechnology, obviously. I think all these issues have been identified. Now, finally, some of you have already identified joint research, joint education programs. For example, the one between Oklahoma State and the CAU, between Cornell and the Nanyang Agricultural University, and probably Huazhong and the Northwest, with many other US universities. Can we further strengthen more? Can we do more? Can we request our governments to provide more funding to promote the joint collaboration? And finally, can we ask the government to relax some of the policies, relax some of the regulations, so we can let the scientists work together. Scientists have no border. Science have no border. And we must work together. So I want to thank you all, the President Du, Dean Robinson, and the Vice President Zhao Mingjuan, and Dean Carroll, Dean Thomas Kuhn, Qingping, Hu Feng, and Zhao Jinhua from his video presentation. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, or have a wonderful morning here in China. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Also, thank you, Fan Ming and others, Jason, for organizing this.
Thank you, Dr. Fan. I know the time is up. I would love to follow up with you. I think there's some really great ideas. I really would like to see if we can be of any support to realizing them.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I just add one word?
Ambassador Quinn, you have the final word.
Of course.
Yes,
as usual.
So I want everyone, now you see that I was absolutely right when I said that Dr. Shengan Fan is one of the smartest, most insightful individuals working in agriculture or in any other subject. You did a terrific, wonderful job. Your summary was great. And it's so wonderful to be collaborating with you again. And I particularly would look forward to finding ways we could work on Africa and other regions. That would be truly inspired. So thank you for a wonderful job.
Thank you, Ambassador Quinn. We are looking forward to your visit to CAU.
Yes.
Our invitation is on. It's still there. So anytime,
all right.
If you feel comfortable to come, please come.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Goodbye.
Bye. Bye-bye.